All right, well today I thought we'd take another trip down memory lane. There was a project that I documented back in 2021 for my brother Nate. He built a new pole barn and we haven't checked in on that project for a long time. Last time I was there, he was putting in his mini split system. So I thought that we just, what are the chances of that? Well, I guess we're gonna have to drive the Jeep, but I'll tackle that. In the meantime, I'm gonna take you guys back to the very beginning because they've literally built up this homestead from the ground up. I'll show you back when we dug the pond and built the house, and then we'll get into the barn and we'll drive over there and see what it looks like now. So hopefully you'll come along. I guess thank goodness I got a spare.
Dig Drive DIY.
My brother Nate and his family began building their homestead in the summer of 2010. They started with just a flat piece of farmland in the corner of a field that usually laid wet. So in order to have proper drainage and make sure there was plenty of slope away from the house, the plan was to build the house up high and then bring in lots of dirt around it to make a gradual slope from the house elevation back down to the original grade of the field around it. They wanted a pond dug too, which was perfect because we were going to need it to generate the amount of dirt required to fill in around the house and meet those desired elevations. So when we dug the hole for the basement, we only had to dig about 4 or 5 feet deep to reach the bottom of what would be the basement floor grade. We piled up and compacted all the basement dirt around the perimeter of that hole, but it wasn't going to be nearly enough to finish out the slope. So by the time the basement walls were poured, the pond was already well underway. I rented a pole pan and a big John Deere 9300 articulated tractor from a relative named Don. We used that to dig the pond right behind the house. We had some other equipment that we were lucky enough to borrow too. I got a little Caterpillar D3 dozer from a friend of mine named Dirk, a pull-type sheep's foot from another friend, Adam, a Case 4-wheel drive tractor from my cousin Aaron, and a large 12-foot pull-type grater box from cousin Paul. Oh yeah, the excavator we had to dig the basement, that was from cousin Mark. Man, where would we be without all the great cousins and buddies? Pull pans, or scrapers as they're often called, are great for digging ponds when the digging conditions are right and there's plenty of room to move around. The scraper loads itself as you drag it or scrape it across the ground, and then when finished loading, you can carry that dirt far from where you picked it up if you want to. This method involves hundreds and hundreds of trips down into the pond to dig and then back out to go out where you want to dump it. It worked really well in this situation though, because I could just make countless laps around the property as I carried dirt all around the perimeter of the house to build up that slope that we wanted. After I dig for a day or two, I'd take that little dozer around the top of the pond and shape the banks down as the hole began to get deeper and deeper, and I could use the sheep's foot too to compact any fill that needed compacted. On weeknights after work and every weekend for a month or more, I kept making laps, all while the house started to take shape right in front of me through the cab windows of the tractor. Whenever it rained, we'd have to pump the water out of the hole, fight the mud for a while, and then just keep on digging. I dug and dug on that pond until I got to a point where I couldn't dig anymore because it was so steep going down into the bottom that the cutting edge of the scraper couldn't touch anymore. It wouldn't reach. So we had a depth of about 20 feet and I couldn't load with the tractor anymore, so we decided we had enough dirt and we called it good enough. Nate put coils of plastic water line in the bottom of the pond for his geothermal closed loop system, and then the only thing left was to put the rock around the top and build the beach and the pier area. I remember using my old backhoe and both of my previous 1-ton dump trucks to dig a dive hole next to the future pier site. We did site work for the rest of the summer and even installed his septic system too. Man, I wish I was making YouTube videos back then. They had lots of family and friends helping out all summer long to do as much of the construction on their own as possible. And slowly but surely, the house came together. They were moved in by Christmas of that year, and then not much changed on their property for about another 11 years. But in 2021, Nate finally decided it was time to get that pole barn done that he had always wanted. When we had completed the dirt work back in 2010, we reserved a spot for a future barn site up next to the house by creating a somewhat level building pad in what otherwise was a gradual slope. The spot was close to being on grade and about the size we wanted, but there was still work to be done. So with everything laid out and the grass killed off to give us a nice guide, the first step of this project was to move out the doghouse to make way for the new man cave. Oh, and by the way, yeah, fortunately I was now making YouTube videos and I documented almost his entire build on my channel back in 21. My boss Greg from my day job lent me his Bobcat to strip the topsoil, and then I did much of the leveling and the pad work with my backhoe and dump truck. I filled in what I could with dirt, and then when the grade was close, we topped it all off with some stone. When it came time for the actual construction of the barn itself, Nate hired a contractor to do that work, as that was part of the pole barn package that he had chosen. A pole barn gets its name because the main foundation of the framing is those large vertical timber poles. They sink them into the ground to provide stability and wind shear resistance. That crew made short work of putting up the barn, and they can really make a guy appreciate and be thankful for hiring out some aspects of a job like this. 2021 was the year when building materials were really hard to come by due to supply chain issues, but for whatever reason, the trusses had arrived several weeks earlier than the rest of the building materials, and really before we were ready for them. So they dropped them off over at my dad's house to keep them out of the way, which meant we had to figure out a way to carry them over to Nate's with the backhoe. Fortunately, it was close, but that was a kind of a fun puzzle to solve, and something I thought probably looked pretty interesting to anyone that might have been driving by at the time. But the barn was framed up now and completed within a couple of days, and now it was time for me to get busy with some of the underground utility work. I used my father-in-law's Volvo mini excavator and my dump truck to work inside the building and trench in the drains and all the utilities. Then, of course, everything was backfilled with stone. Next came one of the most exciting parts of the project, concrete day. Once again, Nate hired a professional and a good friend of his to complete the work. Fortunately, the pour was under roof because it started to rain that afternoon at the worst possible time, but luckily it didn't cause any issues. I'm always amazed to watch pro concrete guys do their thing, because the thought of pouring any concrete when you know that you really can't do it over, well, it's just really intimidating to me. But they made it look easy, and his floor turned out great, of course. Next up, the contractors were back to do the siding to get it all dried in, and then it was our turn once more to connect all the utilities to the house. That was a stressful day, digging between the house and the new building and trying to get everything put through the basement wall without incident. We had to bore a hole in the concrete wall to get the sewer drain and the electric into the house, and that was a great learning experience though, because it was something that I had never done before. But we got it done finally, and we were able to move on to the more fun parts, like grading dirt around the perimeter of the building. I hauled in some fresh topsoil with the F750 and then got to work leveling things up with the backhoe and grader box. It would have been really handy to have the compact track loader and the Hydra bucket back then, but we made do with what we had, and I think it turned out really nice. Next up was a stone perimeter around the building, complete with very old train track rails as the edging to the stone. Now these tracks had been laying behind a neighbor's house for decades, like 50 years or more, and since it's difficult to get rid of them for scrap, they went in as landscape edging. It works really well in my opinion. I have some of it too next to my barn. We got it all smoothed up and seated down just as it started to rain, and for the most part, it turned out really nice. The last thing to do outdoors though was to get the driveway all tidied up and graded again, so we had some more stone trucked in and smoothed it out with rakes and the grader box. And you know what? Those pull-type grader boxes are the MVPs of almost all of my dirt and stone projects. It just seems like they make it so easy to get things quickly looking terrific. So with the outside work done, Nate started to do the electrical stuff inside the building over the winter, and by next spring, he was ready to install the mini split heating and cooling system. I thought this was a really great choice, and it made me wish I had the same setup for my building, because I know how some hot days in the summer, it can be tough to want to work inside my shop. With the heating and cooling all finished up, it was time to finish up the rest of the interior, and Nate would then work on that slowly in his spare time between ball games for the next couple of years. Of course, I've been back to see the progress since then, but he just recently got to the point where he called it officially done. So I think now's a great time to go back and see what it looks like a couple years later. So I'm just going to run on over to my brother's, and for those of you that don't know, fortunately he lives really close. Matter of fact, I just pulled out of my driveway, and he lives right there. That's where we're headed. The doghouse made it back. All right, let's go see if he's in here. Anybody home?
Hey.
What are you doing?
Just got done cleaning up. Watch my favorite YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that looks like a good one.
And learn how to keep my pond clean.
Well, this has come a long way since the last time I was here.
Yeah, it's slow but sure that it came together.
In the last video, you were installing the mini splits, and that was, what year? When?
22.
2022.
Summer of 22.
So it's been at least 2.5 years since the last video we made in here.
Yep.
And it looks good. So you finished the inside with steel siding.
Built the loft here.
Yeah, you got a nice loft and a little work area underneath the loft, just like kind of like I have.
Storage up on top. I got some shelves up on top that you can see. Yeah, finished everything out.
No, it looks good. I like how nice and bright it is. So what'd you use for lights? What'd you decide on for lights?
They're just LED strip lights. It came from All Phase Electrics, just a local supply house here in town. I forget the lumens on them. I think they're 20,000 lumen, I think.
But it's pretty bright.
It's nice and bright. Dad said he knows when I'm working out in the shop at night because he can see the glow
Yeah.
from outside.
So you got 2 overhead doors in here. What size are those?
12 by 12. Two
12 by 12s
12.
on the front. And then what I'm jealous of, one of the things I'm jealous of is the door out the back. And that's a what?
That's an 8-foot door. It's just kind of a little service door, so the pond is obviously right out back.
Yeah, the pond is right here.
So you can see we got the kayaks, we got all the pond toys. So in the summertime when the kids have all their friends over,
Yep.
we got a little paddle boat out there too, so we can just open the door, and now with the bathroom, kids can run in.
One of the questions that everybody's going to ask about is how do you like the mini splits?
I cannot picture having this barn without them.
Really?
It is the most incredible thing. They're running right now, and I mean, we can have a conversation. So they're not very loud. They're incredibly efficient, and they just work awesome.
Well, that's probably the one thing I'm jealous of the most is the air conditioning, because my shop doesn't have any air conditioning. And I've really been considering a mini split system like this just to get the AC. Now, do you remember how many BTU? You've got 2 heads, so
Yep.
what's the BTU of your mini
So
split?
each head is 24,000 BTU. The exterior unit is a 48,000 5-zone head. So I could have five heads, but it just got the 24,000 BTU heads. We're still not done. I still got a few things I want to do. I wired up for, the biggest thing is and I didn't notice it, but when you go up in the attic here, if we walk up there, it's 10 degrees warmer up there
Sure.
than it is down here. There's always something you can be doing.
Yeah, so you've just been working on it in the weekends when you have time for
In
the last
between,
couple of years.
in
to try to-
between sporting events and yeah. So
So you got 3 kids, and you're just chasing them from one park to the other during the summer, and then from one game to the other during the school year. So
absolutely.
let's take a little trip around. So you did all your own electrical work because you're an electrician by trade, right?
Did all my electrical work with the help of you getting the service over here through the ground.
Right.
So helped dig the hole, but yeah, did
And
all the
Dad.
electrical work.
Put metal siding on the outside. You trimmed out your own windows.
Yeah, YouTube is a great resource if you don't know how to trim windows.
Exactly.
Watched a lot of videos.
You have Wi-Fi smart garage door openers.
Smart garage door openers. We do have a router out here that's it's piggybacked off the inside of the house, so I do have internet out here.
Well, let's check out upstairs in the loft.
Yep.
This looks good. So I think every building should have something like this, and upstairs where you can put parts and pieces and the stuff you're not getting every day. Like super nice for seasonal storage. Of course, you got your airplane. Chairs, the same thing I put up in my loft. Hardware store. Very nice. All right, probably one of the coolest things and the most important part of any shop, in my opinion, is behind this door, right?
It's the one that gets used the most.
The latrine. Oh man, this is looking really nice.
This is what probably took the longest out of everything. Just getting it done, framed in, insulated, ceiling, lighting, plumbing.
Yeah, the bathroom is always slow to come together for whatever reason.
Drain that wasn't flush with the concrete and had to get creative on that.
Oh yeah, that turned out nice though. All right, so you have an on-demand water heater for in here.
Yeah,
It's a little guy.
Yeah, we only brought a cold water line out from the house. We didn't bring a hot water. So it splits. It's a PEX pipe, 3/4 inch PEX pipe that terminates at our mana block in the house. And we split it in the wall. Obviously, one side goes over to the stool. The other side, it comes out of the wall. One line goes to the cold of the faucet. The other line runs through the on-demand heater.
Well, this is what kept us from coming back to do a follow-up, is getting the bathroom done. So now that you got it done,
Yeah, it's been a labor of love and hate.
Well, looks good.
Yeah,
Looks real good. So any idea how much it costs to run those things? Because I'm thinking about installing them. Do you know? Any idea?
Yeah, it raised our electric bill. Now, I don't run it 24/7. So on the months that I use it quite a bit, it increases the electric bill about 60 to 80 bucks a month. But if I ran them 24/7, probably be closer to 120, 150 with a month. But it's nice because even when I'm out here for several hours on end, I'll come out and turn those on or turn them on in the house, and within an hour or so they shut themselves off.
Yeah, that's what's nice is you can turn them on remotely and warm it up before you even get out here.
Yep, they're pretty efficient. Even if you think, you know, and that's what I talked to Andrew and my wife about. Like even if it was $100 a month, you get heat and cooling out here for $1,200 a year.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty good.
It's easy. Well, it's looking good. So obviously, the kids are going to park their cars out here. But any other projects planned for out here, or what else you got to do?
No, it's always going to probably, just like your shop, always continue to kind of change and mold. I do want to get those fans up there.
Oh yeah.
That is nice to have that triangle there for the lawn tools, but we want to get those mounted kind of to the wall, kind of like what you have in the blockhouse. So I think it will forever continue to change as I bring home more cabinets and more storage capabilities and fill stuff up.
That's the main thing. If you get storage, then you can keep your floor space empty, and then anytime you can store vertically, you're winning. So it looks good. All right. Well, thanks for letting us drop in and check in again. Thanks for letting me record everything over here. So
yeah, thanks for all the help building it.
All right. Looks good. I got to go fix a flat tire. So
yeah, I got to go to a Comets game.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you later.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks. Well, that was pretty cool to get to follow up with Nate, see how his building looks now, a couple of years later. I think it turned out great. Only thing left I have to do is see if I can fix up this tire. These tires aren't great, but they gotta hold air. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little air. Fortunately, we have an air compressor out here in the garage. Comes in handy. These tires are shot, but if I get a plug in here, I can buy a little time and get some new ones. All right, well, that appears to be holding. Hopefully it'll hold well enough for me to drive around and shop for some new tires. But speaking of shopping, there's some new hats available on the merch website. If you didn't notice, I'm wearing one right now. I had them do up some new hat flavors in honor of the F-750 getting repainted and done up in silver and black. So it's kind of the silver and black theme. These are the soft style like I always wear, and then we did some Richardson 112s and some cool colors too. So even though I don't wear these all the time, I just might start. I've got some other really cool merch too that's in the works, and as soon as it's done and up on the website, I will let you know. So stick around for that. But in the meantime, I just want to thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope that you liked it. And if I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next one. All right. At least I got one thing done today.